Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Email Never Sleeps. But this is a very specific Email Never Sleeps. I post, and my guest today, SageFlow, the CEO of SageFlow, Aaron Smith. We focus on distributed marketing or franchise marketing. We're going to talk all about today about franchise marketing and email marketing and a lot of different things. So we've titled this podcast from Franchise Forward. What are some of the marketing challenges and what are some of the winning strategies? I'm Andrew Kordek. I'm a fractional evangelist and strategist for iPost. We are an email service provider, meaning we are the ones that send all of the emails. And, I'm really excited today. I have a longtime colleague who I've known for many years in the industry. And, we've met each other. We've probably presented at the same things, but it's really sort of great to have Aaron Smith with me. Aaron, introduce yourself, introduce your background, because you and I have been around for quite some time.
Indeed. Maybe too long, but I still got a lot left in me. So yeah, thanks for the intro. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders over here at SageFlow. I've been in the industry for a couple decades and started on the agency side, one of the first email specific agencies, and then ran a professional services org at an ESP before going back out and starting up the business that would become SageFlow. And yeah, it's a really fun industry to be in, and it's always interesting, always evolving.
It's funny you mentioned you've been in it for decades. I think I've been in it for 2.5 decades, right? So I'm going to age myself a little bit. And I think when we first met years and years ago, you weren't as gray and I wasn't as gray, right? So that sort of gives you some, but I hope that helps our audience, right? With, hey, look, we've been around the block. We've seen a lot. We've done a lot. We've been involved with clients from all different verticals. And when you start thinking about franchise marketing or email marketing or distributed marketing, I guess the big question I have is, you hear these terms, franchise marketing or distributed marketing. Aaron, to me, there is no difference, right? I mean, we're going to use these words interchangeably here
Yeah,
for
yeah,
our podcast, right?
yeah. Yeah, there's a couple other phrases. I think they're all interchangeable today, and I'll probably switch between a few of them. Local marketing. I
Yeah.
actually that is my favorite one, but it's really bad for SEO, so we don't really use it too often because people think that you're looking for like a local marketing agency. But to me, that actually gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. It's empowering your local teams to be able to send messages, and they're part of like a big brand, a franchisor's brand.
Right. And so when we start using the word distributed marketing, let's talk a little bit about the differences between good and great. I don't want to focus on negatives, right? We can talk about negatives all day long. It's easy to talk about negatives. I want you to, based off of, your experience, what's the difference between good and great? What do you?
Gosh. Um, well, one thing I would say is not a whole lot of people are doing this. So if you're doing anything, that's good.
Yeah.
If you're finding any way, so I think probably the majority of our audience will be central marketing teams, directors of CRM, email marketing managers, digital marketing managers. And if you're doing anything on your team, or in conjunction with like a field marketing operations team in your org to help
Mhm.
local teams and franchisees send email, SMS, push, what have you,
Right.
um, you're doing good because not a lot of people are even doing that. And then if you've been doing it for a little while, you're probably seeing that it's surprisingly effective. And so to me, great is being a little bit more buttoned up about it. Probably having some people that are dedicated and sort of sit in between um, the central marketing team and those field marketers, and basically, sorry, I mean those local marketers,
Right. Right.
and give them like, basically help them become better marketers because franchisees are
Hmm.
usually, I say they're mavericks, and I mean that in a good way, but they're really smart people. they're generally wearing lots of hat. Like if you're a quick serve restaurant franchisee, you might have one, you might have like five, you might even have 10 restaurants that you own, and you're worried about who's coming in. Do you have frozen hamburger patties in the walk-in?
Right.
Um, and and you might not be a great marketer, but if folks can give you the right tools to help you be effective and get the brand, make the brand look good at the same time, that is good to great right there.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with everything you said about good. I think great teams as well is, there's this empowerment thing, right? And I think you mentioned one word where you're talking about empowerment, but the ability to empower those the franchisees, right? To give them access to become a better marketer, to at least learn about things. But I'll also add that great marketers, right? Great distributed marketers not only are just buttoned up from, hey, here's what the assets we have, here are the campaigns that we're going to run, but more importantly is how much they are willing to learn, number one, and having a very buttoned up process. Because if you're a franchise marketer at the corporate level and you're running, 20 different campaigns, right? Or 20 different franchisees, it's really difficult to ensure that everything is buttoned up and really kind of pushed down the right way, and also training as well. So we're in 2025. There's this huge talk around all these different challenges that people have here in 2025. But if you were to sort of lay out maybe one or two of the biggest challenges that franchise marketers face in 25, what would you think they are?
Um, I think you touched on them in your what you said was great. So maybe the opposite of that, not having strong SOPs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and and so again, I would say that those are the goods. Again, anybody even doing this, I think is doing good, because there are so many orgs that could and should be doing
Mhm.
local and distributed marketing that aren't. Um, but a lot of times what we see working with customers is they're sort of so surprised by how effective the program is that they let it run on autopilot for a year or two without investing more time in sort of helping it grow and evolve.
Yeah.
So I would say creating a feedback loop, so you're watching what you're doing, and that you educate the franchisees and help them become better marketers. You don't need to do a whole lot, but you shouldn't just, I don't know, give them a tool with SOPs, but then leave it up to them just to do stuff. I think continuous feedback
Yeah.
and communicating with the users is really really important. And
You know,
I'll bounce it back to you. Yeah.
yeah, no. So I've been reading a lot of articles as 24 ended, 25, and then beyond. And yeah, most of the stuff that I read is centered around consumer sentiment, right? And I think that a huge challenge that franchise marketers in dealing with their franchise owners, right, are going to have is this: it's not always about the sale. It's not always about what the deal is. You have to establish this sort of trust. Sentiment today, customers today, when they look to part with their hard-earned money, want to put their faith and trust in a brand, right? Now, again, whether you're selling quick order restaurant or menu items or dry cleaners or little gym kids gymnastics type of things, they want to feel like they have this deep connection. And so part of the marketing aspect, in addition to empowerment to the franchisee, I'm going to use the word Z, to empowerment to the Z is giving them the ability to say, what are we doing that is great? It's about the content. And then how do you distribute that, in a way where it's not invasive to the inbox or SMS or push or whatever, but that they feel good about who they're dealing with. And you're right, to local, showing that you support the local area, I think is really important, and that can be accomplished. That's again one of the differences between good and great, right? And I think that's really important. Look, when we start talking about um, data, everyone loves to talk about data, Aaron. You and I have been around this block many a times, right? What are some of the data points that franchise marketers use? Like, what are some of the things that they want, and what do you think they're going to be doing in the future?
Well, one really big difference in franchise or local marketing compared to central marketing is a lot of times the action you're trying to drive is in-store activity. And
Mm,
so, email marketers are generally thinking, I want opens and clicks.
yeah,
And so you actually shouldn't care so much about those
yeah,
in franchise marketing. What you're trying to do is get people mostly, I'd say probably 75% of your comms are still going to be somewhat promotional and end result driven for some sort of revenue outcome. And
right,
so if you're using some sort of loyalty platform or couponing tool, you can then measure revenue that way, which is really important. But opens and clicks they're not going to matter as much, and you're also not necessarily going to have as many CTAs. Although, if you're running a really good program, you are going to be able to sync up all of your data in your platform so that when a franchisee sends an email out, they can have a link that basically says, order online for pickup from our particular store, which is a really cool thing to do.
yeah,
So there are data points there that you can track. I think they're generally the important ones to a franchisee. They care more about revenue than anything. And then um, the engagement stuff, we we see with everyone that we work with, and it's not us. It's just that the local campaigns do this on their own accord. The engagement metrics are always much higher, not necessarily clicks, but opens, because people like to generally hear from people in their area. So they might
right.
even use terminology that the corporate brand team wouldn't. I always use this example, and I feel like I'm flogging a horse a little bit with this
Yeah,
one. Um,
yeah,
if you're in Atlanta and you're part of a quick serve restaurant, it may not be your national brand identity, but that local franchisee can send an email out to people at their stores and say, like, come on in, y'all. And it
yeah,
works.
yeah.
But if I got that in California, I'd be like, I'd say, dude, like, what is that? Why are you saying y'all to me?
Yeah.
And yeah, you just can connect a lot more easily from that local level.
I think you make an important point, right? Because whether you've come from the traditional marketing areas and now you're into franchise marketing with a digital marketing manager or whatever, when you looked at email programs before, this opening clicks, is the benchmark of how well or how not well my program did. I'm going to add something, I call it, we call it in certain other verticals, repeat rate or reorder rate, or people coming in on a regular and consistent basis, but then tracking that back to an email or an SMS or something that you're doing, like what is it that's driving them back in? Is it because of the service that they received? And if so, how are you going to leverage that message in the sort of communication? I think that's really important. And you're right, language and localized things do matter, but I also would say is, hey, look, what's the primary driver? And if it is email, you see a spike in traffic, people coming in, people taking advantage. That's an important thing. And oftentimes we in other verticals, right, in other industries, they don't really look at that. And that's really, really important. I think too, right? When I think about, success, right, and data in and itself, there's a lot of data that maybe you can accumulate that you're probably never going to use. So don't worry about collecting data on every data point that you can. I think it's really important, especially from a loyalty perspective, that you have right coupons or loyalty based programs, right, that continuously drive, because your competition is everybody, right? And I think that's the way you can leverage SMS or email. And I'll give you a really good example. I've got a local garage here that I've dealt with on my cars, right? They send me and are knowing, hey, your car is due for X, your car is due for Y. Did you know that it's going to be 20 degrees below zero here in Chicago and you got to do this and check your tire pressure? They send me both SMSs and texts because they are messaging to me of who I am and the cars that I've had serviced with them. Man, and they're a wonderful franchise to deal with here. And that's truly the difference of me going to the car dealer or going to somebody else. They know me, they know of me, and they know about me. And I think that is really important. So data and data points obviously vary from different types of franchises to different types of franchises. And, I think, Aaron, you'll probably say, hey, look, if there's a franchise marketer who's going to listen to this, they can contact you, they can contact me, and we can certainly chat it through. And remember, folks, there's not really just this one standardized data point that you should always collect.
No
It
way.
really, it
Yeah.
really is different. And for like you said, and I'll reiterate, don't just concentrate on what the email metrics tell you. There are other ways to ensure that your program can be successful. All right, so I have to ask this question because again, it's 25 and everyone's talking about AI and how AI is going to change the world or, do our jobs. And you've got everything. And like this AI of my camera is now unfocusing, focusing me because I'm moving too much. But where do you see AI playing a role in any of this? I know I have a very strong opinion of it, but I'd love to hear yours.
I think it's awesome in some ways, terrifying and frightening in others. Maybe, in terms of, actually, I'm going to avoid going down the rabbit holes of the dark side of AI. I'm just going to
Yeah.
talk about the cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, what we see people using it again, a lot of the sort of end execution users will be franchisees, the Z's of the world, who are not marketing experts. And if you can give them AI generative learning language model tools that can help them write better copy and put a lot of cool guardrails around that so that if it's for a specific brand, it knows what words to avoid, what phrases to actually substitute in that might be brand appropriate and tone. So in addition to helping people that maybe not the best spellers or have great grammar, it can also really make sure that they stay on brand as well. And I think right now, what we see, there's a lot of great functionality around those aspects of it, what I would say sort of like the copy side. And there's a lot of cool stuff beginning to happen around more of like the full-on generation of like layouts that I'm really excited about because it's not there yet, but at a certain point, AI will be able to augment what that Z is doing so that
Yeah.
they can basically prompt and say, I want to create a message. Here's my offer. This is the particular type of audience that I want it to go to. And it will, throw something up for them that is going to look good. They can then go in and tweak and modify it to add their own personal voice to it.
Yep.
And so we're already, I would say a little bit down that road with just the basic housekeeping functions. When we started doing this, there weren't really great tools to help with, I would just say the spell checking,
Yeah.
grammar, tone, and all that sort of stuff. And that's really important when you're doing this, that you do have some ability to kind of review things. And so now you can have these tools that will do a first pass before that sort of field marketing team or the central marketing team reviews things. So it saves a lot of time. And it helps, again, Bob or Jane, the franchise owner, be a lot faster and effective as well. And I think that's the biggest thing because they don't have 2 or 3 hours to put an email message together.
Yep. Yep. On the corporate marketing side, I think AI is self-explanatory, right? There's a lot of things that are happening. There's a lot of things that are being used every day that we don't even consider to be, AI, whether it's dynamic content injecting into emails, if you're going to do a mass sort of campaign to your right, spell checkers, content, localized content. But for the franchisees, right, for these folks that own local places. This is where you can really leverage some of the content, the message, the tone. And I'm a horrible grammar guy, right? Like I have a tool that literally checks everything that I write, so I don't sound like a big dummy. And I love it, and that I've incorporated. Whoa, there goes that camera again. But look, I think about AI a lot. I think about there's positives and there's negatives to AI in what we see. And you're right, the dark side of AI, anybody can talk about that. But I do agree with you, Aaron, that AI is here to stay. We have to embrace it, and we have to embrace it to say, how can we use it in our business? And we're probably using it, whether you're a marketer or whether you're a Z or a Zor, you're probably using it more often than you think. Um, let's talk about content strategies and campaign strategies. When people talk about email marketing or digital marketing in general, it's easy to talk about the retail vertical. This is specifically for franchises, right? So there's this whole notion of, well, we should copy everything that my local real retailer or my large box retailer is doing in franchising, and that's certainly not the case. And so I'm curious as to what are some of the strategies, at least that you work with some of your clients at SageFlow, around content and or campaign strategies.
No, man, this is one of my favorite topics.
Cool.
So
Cool.
um, it's it's similar, and yet there are a lot of differences. And I think so if you're on the central side, you're listening to us having this conversation, um, be aware that there's so much more that can unlock local marketing if you put this in the hands of your franchisees. So before I was saying maybe 75% should be promotional, but it shouldn't just be, here's an offer to people that have, bought this particular type of product before. Um, of course, you should do all the basic stuff and enable that at the local level, but
Mhm.
some very common strategies we see are also tying into local events, and creating more community connection. So, that franchisee might be on a block that gets closed off on Saturdays and has a farmer's market. And instead of that being something that is like, a downer, central marketing team is never going to know about that. They're not going to send a message out for that one store out of 500.
Yeah.
But that local franchisee can actually turn that into an event and say, hey, we open an hour early, come get your coffee or whatever it is that that shop is selling, before or after you visit the market. And then it lets the customers know this person is in my community. They're kind of like more of a real person. It humanizes things. If you're a studio fitness, maybe you've got a celebrity trainer coming through, and you want to talk about that. So it's also like, I would say things that are event based that are happening in your location or near your location. Those are great things. Tie-ins to high school football games. Those are killer. All these there there have to be like hundreds and hundreds of different plays around local events. And local giving is also a really important one too. And I see what's interesting is I think the brands that have started to go from good to great in franchise marketing, one of the commonalities amongst them is that their their franchisees are very involved in the communities, and the broader brand is also supportive of that. And so it's, there is an aspect of what the company is doing that is altruistic and about investing in the communities that their businesses operate in. And those are great things to talk about. You don't always have to be pitching for dollars. You can also just say, hey, like we do this really cool thing and you can contribute to this other charity that we gave some dollars to.
Yeah, and that's that humanized aspect that I always and have talked about for years and years and years. So let's move to the franchise marketer side, the corporate marketing, right? And you think about teams and how they organized different things, and how do they run distributed marketing programs? We all know from the email side at iPost how they run it. They can run it through many different ways, but how do they utilize, and maybe how do they utilize SageFlow, right? To run these distributed programs across all of their teams, especially if they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of locations. I'd be curious to know this.
Yeah, I actually don't want to toot my horn too much.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about like their teams and their orgs.
Okay.
So I'll just say that
Yeah.
our tool makes it really easy for those franchisees to send emails out and kind of connects them with whatever ESP they're using.
Hmm.
So ultimately, that's great because everything is still going out of the same platform at the end of the day, and your frequency governance rules and all that all can be leveraged. From a reporting perspective, you can also see all of the local, the performance of your local marketing campaigns in one place in comparison to the broader,
Yeah.
I would say like national or international marketing campaign that you're running. But the
Yeah.
interesting thing is how teams organize themselves to support this. And when you're just starting out, what we see is it's really fine. And probably if you're listening to this, you may already be doing something like this. You might not be quite in what I would call good. You might be in a phase where you're personally feeling really frustrated because you might be supporting franchisees at the national level, and that's bad. But
Yeah.
it's a good start. And so that means that they might be, you might have somebody on your central marketing team, one of your email marketing managers or execution folks that work with franchisees, and they send, form submissions in and say, here's something I want you to create for me. And they go back and forth. And, it's just
Yeah.
like a regular brief, but you try to keep it locked down so it doesn't distract your team too much. That's the very beginning.
Yeah.
Then once you've gone a little bit better and you have a tool like Sageflow or iPost that's a little bit more focused on serving both of those users, the
Yeah.
franchisees and the central marketing team. At that point, you as a central marketer are not going to have to create campaigns, and you can be focused more on training and education. You should, I think, at that phase still have somebody on your team that's really locked in and looking at what's going on. And then the third phase of maturity is when you've got somebody in like outside of your email team or your digital marketing team. Every franchise or org I've worked with, well, not everyone, but there's different names for these groups. Sometimes it's called uh, the team leads, the franchise team leads. Sometimes it's called like franchise relations, field
Right.
marketing, marketing operations. There's lots of different names for that, but essentially there's a group, um, and their responsibility is to sit in between the central organization
Hmm.
and the franchisees. And I think of them as basically customer success for franchisees.
Yeah.
And you totally like they're probably going to exist in your org. The sooner you get them involved, the sooner you bring them in, the better it's going to be for you as a central marketer, because those people love to see franchisees succeeding, and they're a little bit more buttoned up and polished in terms of like knowing how to talk to the franchisees to help them basically, I would say, I don't want to say push down, but push out, or like distribute out, we're saying distributed marketing, what the central marketing team, the plays that they think will be really beneficial. So those are, there's a lot of nuance in between that, but I would say those are sort of like the crawl, walk, run phases.
Yeah, and you've been an entrepreneur a majority of your career. I've been an entrepreneur a majority of my career. And when I think about that, I think about how the franchisees, and like you said, they've got everything that to worry about. They wear many different hats. And because we all have a phone and we all have access to free photo editing software, there's this whole like, how do we keep creative and branding consistent? And that's where I would definitely rely on somebody that can train me how to do it, the ability to control the assets, to know that I'm using something that's corporately approved, unless it's a local image or things of that nature. But this is where I think corporate initiatives can say, hey, we're going to train you how to use this fantastic system, right? Where you're going to be able to send marketing campaigns on your own. We're empowering you to do that. It's your business, right? But we're going to put a little bit of guidelines around it. So as a franchisee, I wouldn't feel offended that they're trying to at least protect the brand, protect the creative. And then I don't have to feel like I have to go hire somebody out on my own. right? To do that, I'm armed with all of that. Part of that is then just the content, and like you said, the local content. And I think that's really important for corporate marketers, or even the in-betweens, the field marketing or the liaisons, to work with it. Because you know what, at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, everybody's in it to be successful, right? They've invested their time and life and money, and in some cases, blood, sweat, and tears to get this franchise off the ground. And corporate wants to make sure that they maintain the same level of how outwardly we are going to be, whether we're going to send an SMS out, or whether we're going to send an email out. We want it to all look very consistent. And I think that's important. So, Aaron, I want to wrap it up. Believe it or not, we've reached sort of our time. And I'd love for you to think about, because we've all been to franchise conferences and we've seen content and stuff. And wanted to have you imagine that if you were in front of a group of 100 franchise marketers today, both the Z's and the Zors, right? People on both sides. If you had some key takeaways as they enter, into 25 and beyond, right, around digital marketing, what are one or two or three things that you'd want to convey to them?
If you're not doing it, just start, because it's a amazing revenue growth opportunity. Whether you're a QSR, retail, whatever business you might be in, if it relies on foot traffic, local marketing, franchise marketing is an amazing way to help increase that. And it works. People want to hear from you. So if you're a Z, do more. Don't overdo it. Don't send 4 messages a week or anything like that. But 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 do it, because it will bring people into your store. You'll create a connection with them. All marketing is good marketing, at least mostly. Yeah,
Mostly,
yeah.
mostly. To add on to that, I would say if you're doing it, think about that your competition is everybody else that's arriving in their inbox or arriving on their phone. And there's this connection that you could have, right? And how you distribute your campaigns, and the things that you say and the things that you do really do matter to people. And so if you are heavily involved in the community, don't be afraid to talk about your involvement. Don't be afraid at the corporate level to say, here's some outstanding things that are happening at our organization, at our franchise. And maybe they're outside of the realm of somebody in downtown Atlanta or in Chicago or whatever. This is the way to shine. And this is the way, the difference I think that the world is turning to today. People want to have this sort of connection as opposed to just always getting the deal. Yeah, it's nice to have a deal. Yeah, it's nice to have a coupon. Yeah, it's nice to have a loyalty program. But when they walk in, they want to make sure that they feel super connected to the brand, whether it's a large franchise with 1,000 locations, or something with 20 locations. There's that unique difference. And lastly is, take everything that you've learned in digital marketing and kind of tweak it a little bit. This is not easy stuff. It's fun. It's awesome to see results. You are going to fail, and that's okay, right? It's okay to fail. Learn from that failure of saying, well, we only did this and we only sent this, or the coupon was wrong or whatever. That's great. You failed, Darren. I know you have, and I know I have, right? And we've all done really weird, bad things, but we've recovered from it. But that's a great segue into say, you know what? I'll put in my plug for testing. I don't care if you test once a year, test something, right? And what you are doing, because you are going to learn more. And that's where you learn who your customer, your bread and butter, the people that really matter to you matter the most, because they're the ones that are driving what you are doing. And you can learn from some of the experts that are out there about digital campaigns, and then start slow. I'm partial to email, partly because everyone has an inbox and everyone is always willing to give that email. Sometimes SMS can be a little invading, and then you can sort of play off the SMS email. And if you've got an app, you can do it through push as well. That's would be my third preference. But look, we're in an exciting time in here in 25, and there's a lot going on. And I would honestly tell everybody that listens to this podcast is, check out SageFlow, man. They're doing some cool stuff. You guys are at the forefront of distributed marketing. I've seen your product. I love your product. I think you invest in the marketer from both ways, and so does iPost, right? When you start talking about companies that are dedicated to the industry, right, that you are in, right, that's that, and they develop, and we think about things, and we have experts on staff that understand your business and what it can do. Man, that's a powerful thing. So, Aaron, any parting words before we let our people roll on after a 30-minute podcast and listening to you and me drone on?
I just want to underscore what you were talking about a minute ago. I almost feel like franchise marketing is an antidote to AI, because it humanizes the connection that you have with your customers, and it's a way that these big brands can become a lot more approachable to customers at the end of the day. So I love it for that. I love the aspect of connectivity. I just think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us today. I know you guys are busy doing a lot of different things, and whether you've watched this in segments, watched the whole thing, or are on 2 times the speed, I really appreciate your loyalty to this podcast. I want to thank Aaron Smith again because, man, he took time. He's really knowledgeable in this area. And if you have questions for us, just comment on something or get a hold of us. Find us on LinkedIn. We are always more than happy to engage in a conversation with y'all. So till next time, everybody, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, but just try to get better every day.